What we're looking at here is an everyday carry or E.D.C utility collection. And this is my Canadian version or variation to what is typically a CIA E.D.C. So this one doesn't have any knives or illegal weapons except for the pepper spray, which is a legal weapon, but not always something you want to carry around with you in public. Because in Canada, the concept of the everyday carry is strictly bound by the criminal code. And this focuses heavily on the intent behind why you're carrying a specific item outside your house in public, either concealed or not. And you also have to understand that even carrying utilities as a means of self-defense can be considered possession of a weapon for dangerous purposes. But with that being said, I wouldn't be too concerned about most of the items here, except for the pocket pepper spray. Because defense sprays can easily be considered weapons, even though they're legal to buy without any kind of license or background check. So carry these with discretion and don't show them in public. You may not always have to carry it with you, and you don't want it just dangling off your belt carabiner. Now, this isn't bear spray. Bear spray is much bigger and far more powerful. You don't need it against other people. You don't need it against another person. And it's not convenient to carry around with you anyway. It's quite big. It's not convenient. You can't easily keep it in your pocket. You would have to keep it in a purse or a backpack otherwise. So this is pocket spray. And these are usually marketed as dog spray. And something to note is that these smaller canisters often use a spring-loaded trigger instead of a pressurized aerosol can. So you shoot it by pumping the trigger once or a few times. If you just hold it down, it'll only shoot out one stream, and that may not be enough. It'll shoot out a burst of a stream for a second, and then the spring is compressed. It won't shoot anymore unless you keep doing it. So this brings me to my next point. These spring-loaded ones, for some reason, they shoot a more concentrated stream. They do spray or splay out a bit, but not like aerosol cans and not like bear spray. So you need to carefully aim at the eyes when you're doing this, or at least very close to the eyes. Now, if a police officer does catch you carrying this, you have to say that you're using it to protect yourself around dogs or other wild animals. You can't say it's a self-defense weapon, otherwise they consider it that. The next item here is cash. Sometimes I carry just a bunch of fives with me, a few fives or 10 fives, and other times I know I could run into a bigger problem. If I'm driving around somewhere or if I'm driving very far, I don't know how many times my car is broken down in my lifetime, many times, and at which point I need, cash in the hundreds to be able to afford a tow truck and some other things, maybe some food as I'm waiting and all sorts of who knows what. So cash is always great to have because banks sometimes go down and then debit machines stop working. Cards can stop working. You never know. The next item is the Jawbreaker Mini. This is another higher risk item under Canadian law. It's just intended to be used as a screwdriver and bottle opener, but you can actually hold the base of this in your palm and extend a couple of these bits between your fingers. You can extend them out and then hold them between your fingers and use this as a defense weapon because it's very strong. It's like when you put your keys between your fingers and make a fist. If you've ever heard of that trick, it's like that, but much better and stronger and more stable. And it's also kind of like brass knuckles. So it's this very good alternative because brass knuckles are also a very deadly weapon, a bone-breaking weapon, and they're prohibited in Canada. So this works as an alternative. And so you just obviously have to consider this as a tool and always tell people that that's the only reason why you're using it. Then we have the watch. And what we see here in this example is just a fancy watch, but the point is, what you might want instead is something like a GW9400 or a Rangeman, because they're often considered the standard for utility watches. The GW9400 is solar powered, so it never faces battery failure. And it also comes with a compass and barometer for navigation and weather tracking. And continuing on here, if you look at the keys, there's a thin rod sticking out, and that is a cuff key. It is legal to carry cuff keys around, and they can help you in the unusual case that something like someone like a criminal cuffs you instead of a police officer. And then you can get out of those cuffs. Now, for discrete communication, we have a particular kind of cell phone here. It's a burner phone. That's what you can consider it. Until recently, the only option was to go for a cheap, basic flip phone. But now there are some options out there, like the unplugged phone or the up phone, which does the same thing as a flip phone. What it does is it removes your tracking and your metadata and all that. So that's the important feature about these phones, the flip phone or the up smartphone. Perhaps it's not even a smartphone at all, depending on how you define that, because these lack the constant background tracking and data mining that apps find on typical smartphones. And these things are sending hundreds of signals to companies like iPhone, on minute-to-minute basis every day. Everything can be tracked, right? Your exact location is so easy to be tracked when you have a smartphone. But these are more reliable in emergencies and far more private. And you can even put these phones in something like a Faraday bag, and then that makes it completely invisible if you need it. You may not be able to easily use it in a Faraday bag, depending on whether or not you can hear the person's talking to you still and they can hear you. But if it's in a little bag like that, it's invisible. And even the cell phone reception won't be seen. Then we have the tactical pen. These are very impressive. These tactical pens, they're kind of like space pens, but they're a little bit more useful. They have the recessed tip. They write extremely well. They can go upside down, which if you notice, you can't easily write. Well, actually, no, you can't use most pens upside down for very long. The ink will just run the other way. You can't always write on a wall either with a pen. These also write underwater and through greasy materials. They're extremely durable. They're made of aircraft-grade aluminum. The clip is really strong, so if you have it clipped anywhere, it doesn't come off. And they also withstand really extreme temperatures, at least for our purposes, minus 35 degrees and 120 degrees Celsius. That's the range. So that's very hot and very cold. And it can also be used as a kubota, or a short stick defense weapon. So if you know how to use a kubota, mostly you're doing with this. You can use it with strikes. It puts a lot of power and strength and stability in your strikes. You can strengthen your fist, or you can also strike at the tip. And you can use the tip to create pressure points, which are really useful. When someone grabs you in a bear hug, you can very swiftly pressure point their knuckles if they've got you in that kind of grip. You pressure point their knuckles in the same place. There's no way they can hold on. You can pressure point some other areas too, but you have to learn this kind of martial art to really know the full extent of this. These are also TSA friendly. They'll travel through airport security, no problem. And a very important thing is this hardened tip on this pen here on the cap can be used for breaking tempered glass in an emergency. So you can definitely use this to break the glass if you're trapped in a car. Now moving on to the next thing, the spy pry. There are many different kinds of portable pry bars you can get out there, and most people don't carry pry bars in their E.D.C, but it's very useful. So this one is called the spy pry. It's a mini pry bar. You can use it because it has a flat tip. You can use it to open paint cans. It has a bottle opener on the side. It has a ruler. You can measure things. And it's also a good alternative to opening boxes and cutting things to some extent. Because if you don't want to if you carry a utility knife from time to time, and you don't want to get it dull all the time, and you just have lots of Amazon boxes and other things to open, then this will do the job just fine as a substitute. It doesn't have a knife, but it's sharp enough to open boxes and taped boxes. And again, this is an excellent self-defense tool. It's very strong. It can smash through a car window. It's a 1/4 inch thick, but then it has this tapered, thin tip to it, the pry bar tip to it. And this is really dangerous. So you can discreetly carry this around on your car keys or whatever keys you have, your little key collection. You could be holding it with your keys, but in any moment you can use it to strike. And when you're striking in self-defense, in a case of emergency only, you need to aim for the soft, weak parts of the body. So basically the neck and above in most cases. You usually don't want to aim for the groin unless it makes sense, because you're exposing your body in a really vulnerable way by lowering your arms, lowering your whole body to get down there. Unless the person's above you and you're laying down, then of course it makes sense to reach up to them. So generally, you want to strike anywhere on the neck, the front of the neck, the side of the neck, the throat, and anywhere on the face is a very vulnerable place. And immediately, this gets people off your back. It has saved a woman's life, or it's saved her from a serious harassment. So these work really well. And you can get these at spypry.com. I haven't checked the shipping. I'm not sure if they ship to Canada or other parts of the country. Of the world. Next thing is a flashlight. Sometimes it's useful to have a flashlight, depending on your typical routine. But when you have a flashlight, if you need one, a little pocket light, then you want to shoot for somewhere around 500 lumens or more. And of course, always buy LED, because LEDs are the brightest and the most efficient. They don't generate a lot of heat. They last super long. They're the best. So you don't want to cheap out on this and get a dollar store lighter, a flashlight usually, because, the thing may not even work even at the first go. And if it does, it may not last very long. So you want to get one that's pretty decent quality, then you can just use it forever. And flashlights are also good for signaling for help. They're obviously great for camping. If you're traveling anywhere, if you're going on a long drive and there aren't any stops, you can signal for help with it. You can do SOS or other signals. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is the typical CIA American E.D.C. So what we have here now is I swapped out the pepper spray with a non-lethal pistol, because in some of these EDCs you'll see that there's a pistol, a real firearm involved here, so I swapped it out for a non-lethal one. The company is, I guess, Byrna or Burna, and so they have all sorts of guns like this, and they come in different colors. Now, you can carry any kind of gun in America, either concealed or outside in a holster, as long as it's licensed and registered to you. And with respect to Canadians, you can buy these non-lethal guns legally without a license. And these, because they're non-lethal, these ones usually, they don't need any license or background check. But you definitely don't want to be carrying them around with you when you're out in public all the time, because the police will immediately consider it a dangerous weapon. So in Canada, this is more of a home defense weapon. So it's only in rare cases would you want to consider bringing this out with you on the street. In very particular circumstances, if there's a riot going on, or you have to move around somewhere, you have to get through it, maybe a protest, something really, there's some significant dangers nearby and you have to expose yourself on the street, then I would use this. And it's important that home defense weapons like this are small and short, or specifically designed for close quarters combat, because range rifles and shotguns are far too long, and burglars can easily, just grab the muzzle when you're trying to aim around a corner slowly. And then another thing we have here is a utility knife, and these have different purposes. You can just use them as a general cutting tool, and of course you can use it for self-defense. And then again, we have the spy pry.